learn to trust yourself and your intuition in a world that tells you that success always looks like making more money, like sacrificing yourself, sacrificing your time, working 24/7 in your business, never having time with your kids, and all the other things. What does that look like? Today, I'm going to come on here with my friend Bec, and we're going to tell you from our perspectives as business coaches, how do we do that and how do we guide you through this process? Let me call her onto the live. Here we go. Live with her. She should be coming on here any minute. So. Yes.
Hello.
We did it. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's so nice to see you again because we had a catch up, didn't we?
We did. We had such a great time. So let me just say, Bec and I, we met each other through something that I recommend to all of my clients to do in their businesses is that we met through another event. And then we reached out to each other and we had a coffee chat and we were like, we are so aligned. We have to do something together because the things that we do are just so similar and also different. And we thought that there would be so much value in coming in here today and talking to you about in your intuition and like how do you trust that and how do we each help our clients to get there so that you leave this live with some actual tools and things that you can implement right now to help you to do that more fully.
Oh,
right?
I'm so here for this conversation today.
Yeah. So Bec, tell us about what you do.
So for those that don't know, my name is Bex. I am a mindset coach and I basically specialize in timeline therapy, EFT tapping, like all of the healing modalities. And I really help women shift into that next level self in terms of changing and shifting their identity. So a lot of the work that I do is based on the inner healing, of getting to the root cause of those limiting beliefs, like the past trauma that is stored in the body. Because in my opinion, if you want to create this incredible, successful life, you have to become somebody different. And the old version of you that carries the doubt, the fear, all of that, like she can't come. She can't come all the way, right? So we've got to kind of go through this process and reinvent ourselves.
That is so true. That is so true. And it's kind of, I feel like it's a never ending process, right?
Yeah, it's definitely an ongoing journey.
Yeah. Completely. So for those of you who are watching who don't know me, maybe you're in part of Bec's audience or another one. So my name is Emilia. I am originally from California. I live in the south of France. I've been living here for over 20 years. I'm a mom of 3 boys, and I help women who have a business who is successful on paper, but that is not actually adapted to their mom life. So you have a business that works, but it doesn't allow you to actually live the life and the mom life in particular that you became an entrepreneur to experience, to have that time freedom, to be able to say, I don't want to work today. I'm going to go get a massage or go on a field trip with my kids or whatever that is. And that starts with what we're talking around here with Bec about this idea of like, how do you become the woman who is actually capable of trusting herself to do these things rather than feeling like, like, oh, I have to work on my business today because otherwise like it's going to all fall apart, right? Because that's how we feel, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think, especially, I mean, I left my corporate job in the summer of last year and then obviously full time in business now. And it was a real shift that I had to hack my mind in the sense of I don't have to be switched on, go, go, go all of the time. Like, it's like yesterday, I was feeling so tired. I've had a lot of client sessions at the minute, like a lot of one-to-ones. I'm currently running my membership. I was in another membership last night delivering a session. So yesterday afternoon, I thought, I'm just going to take it off. Like, I need to rest right now and I'm going to have the time and the space. But I've not always been like that because in my head, I was programmed, if I'm not working, I'm not earning.
Yeah.
And that's not the way.
Yeah.
Do you feel that?
Oh, completely. 100%. I mean, I think we all experience that in so many ways, right? Like the first time I decided I wasn't going to work at night
Mm,
anymore. I wasn't going to work when my kid when I when I finally got my kids to bed and asleep. I wasn't going to be working anymore after that. And I
mm,
wasn't going to be waking up at 5 a.m. either. You know, like I was going to be working whatever the hours I decided, but I was going to be working for during times that actually really felt good to me.
mm,
And if that meant that like a client who quote unquote could only work with me and like have her session at night at 8 or 9 p.m. or whatever when my kids were asleep, if that was the only way that she could work with me, well then I wasn't the right person for her because I
mm,
didn't want to be doing that anymore because it felt like I was sacrificing
mm.
myself. I was sacrificing my rest. I was sacrificing my own well-being,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm,
so like that first time it felt so scary.
mm,
It felt so scary. And then there was like the time when I decided I was going to have my kids at home with me over the summertime. And I was going to be having my kids 100% and running my business at the same time. And like negotiating that and figuring out how do you actually do that? That was so scary too, right? Like, oh,
I think
so yeah,
it's
100%.
it, it's when you're making those decisions and those shifts, and I guess, I help my women a lot with the self-trust, because people always say, how do I know if it's my mind speaking or my intuition?
Yeah.
And in my opinion, and I don't know if you'll have a different opinion of this, but in my personal opinion and experience, I can I've only learned to trust my intuition by getting things wrong.
Mm,
In
mm,
in my opinion, because when you don't know, when you're at the very beginning of this, because intuition is one of our mental faculties,
mm,
right? And the more you tap into it, the more you are led in
mm,
that aspect of it. But if you are very new to this, and I have a lot of women in here say, but I don't know, because they've got so much noise going on in their head. And I always say, like, your logical mind is the
mm.
loudest, where your intuition, she whispers,
Yeah.
right? But I think for me, looking back, I've always had this feeling, but then I've gone and done the opposite thing. And then I've gone back and think, I knew that. I knew. I knew that was going to happen, or I knew I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I think like I said, I think that's a really healthy way of building your intuition, because you're allowing failure to come in, because that is the only
Mm,
time you're going to learn.
yeah, that's so true. That is so true. And we don't want to let ourselves fail, right? Because we live in a world that tells us that we have no value when we're failing,
Mm,
like we're doing it all wrong.
mm,
And it doesn't teach us all the value that there is in failing. It doesn't teach us how much that brings us, how much that teaches us.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 I like to see failure as
Hmm.
feedback. Like, that's kind of how I look at it. And I know when I first started off on my business journey, and 3 years here we are, I was in this space of, I haven't got time to fail. This needs to be perfect. I
Right.
need to get this right.
Yeah. Fire under your butt. Like I gotta make money. I got
Yeah,
clients.
I've got to leave
I
my
gotta.
job. But looking back, like, I needed to go down the path. And the more you resist failure, the harder your journey is going to be.
Mm, mm. That's interesting, right? Because like, um, can you? I mean, it even makes me wonder. Like, can you even resist it? I think we try to, right? We try to force our way, we try to force our path through it, right?
Yeah,
And then at some point in time, it kind of catches up with you, doesn't it?
yeah, it absolutely does. And I think even, like, my own personal journey and things that I help clients with today is, I always say, like, just put that one foot in front of the other,
Mm,
but allow yourself, like, even if you didn't, you got something wrong or it wasn't the right path, like, well, at least
yeah,
right? Because you never start from scratch with
yeah,
anything. You always start from experience.
right. And it's so interesting because, like, what happens? What happens when we are not wanting to allow ourselves to fail so often? we find ourselves in that place of hesitation,
Mm.
or what could look like procrastination. Like there's this thing we know we should be doing, but we're not doing, and then we're beating ourselves up because we're not doing the thing that we know we should be doing. Still not doing the thing, even though we're beating ourselves up, right? And then we're like, oh my God, I'm such a bad entrepreneur. I'm never gonna make it. It's never gonna happen. I'm never gonna reach whatever goal that we've got. And this happens every step of the way. Like if you're like at the beginning stages of entrepreneurship, don't believe that this does not happen at every single level, right? These things we experience again and again and again and again, right?
It's new level, new devil.
It's like you want to get to a certain place, and when you're on your way trying to get there, you're scared that you're never going to get there, and then when you get there, you're scared that you're going to lose
Yeah.
it. Then when you're no longer scared that you're going to lose it, you're going to try and go after a new level, and then you're going to believe that you're not capable of getting there, and then you're going to get there, and then you're going to be scared you're going to lose it, and so it's all constantly the same thing, right? So no matter where you're at in your business, no matter how much money you are making, you are experiencing the same cycle again and again. And at the heart of that is us learning how to trust ourselves.
Yeah.
It's us learning how to fail. It's us
Mm.
learning to lean into all of that whole process, because like you're saying, that when we're not allowing ourselves to fail, then we're in this place of hesitation and procrastination and not doing the thing and beating ourselves up about it and just reinforcing actually the belief that we're never actually going to get there,
Mm.
right? Whereas when we actually allow ourselves to fail, we take a step,
Mm.
whether it is the right step or the wrong step, and then we integrate that as just feedback, like you say, that's indicators and information on, okay, well, now what should I try next?
Mm.
Okay, that worked, great. Okay, didn't work, great. Oh, this part of it worked, but that part didn't work, and then continuing to move forward.
Mm.
That's when we're moving the needle, right? And that's when we're learning to trust ourselves, because we're allowing ourselves to just move.
100%. Everything that you've said there, I'm like, yes. And I think, I talk about faith a lot of the time as well, because I really find like with
Mm-hmm.
intuition, faith is kind of embedded within that. And
Yeah.
I always say, like, you take the leap of faith. Like, I left my corporate job, I took that leap of faith, I jumped. But then you have this expectation of how you think your journey is going to pan out,
Mm-hmm.
right? You've got this expectation of, I'm taking the leap of faith, I'm doing the thing, I'm showing up every day, I've got my vision, I'm working on my mindset. And then you get slapped in the face. Right, and you think, hang on a second, I didn't sign up for this. Is not in my soul contract. I did not sign up for this.
That was not on
No,
my
no, no.
manifest.
Excuse me. No, 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 no. And you kind of, but then it's like taking a leap of faith that puts you on the path,
Yeah.
right? The leap of faith puts you on the path. Now, you might sit there and go, well, this is not the path I wanted to be walking,
Yeah.
but it is the path, right? And we always think that things that come at us are the things that are stopping us moving forward, but actually they're not. They're allowing us to expand and to
Yeah.
grow and to think very differently. This is one lesson in entrepreneurship that I've learned. And I
Mm.
studied with Bob Proctor, who did Thinking into Results. And I remember him saying, a 6 and 7 figure business owner is not thinking the same as somebody earning 30 grand a year, right? 30K a year. And my question was, well, how are they thinking?
Yeah,
Like,
right?
how are they thinking?
Uh-huh.
And it's only by learning and failing that you think very different.
Yeah.
Because it, like, failure, in my opinion, it expands you
Mm-hmm.
if you choose to have that perception and look at it as expansive rather than
Mm-hmm.
restrictive. Does,
Mm-hmm.
does that make any
Yeah,
sense?
completely, completely. And um, I think that as women also, we are like, I see it because I have three boys, right? And I look at like all the ways that as little boys, we teach them to take risk
Mm.
and and we allow them to like do like the way that we encourage little boys to do the bad things, and that we justify it, that we don't allow little girls to do, right? Little girls aren't supposed to be climbing in trees.
Mm.
They're not supposed to be getting their skirts dirty. right? Like, they're, they're not supposed to be making so much noise and moving around, like, and breaking things. Oh, God forbid, right? So, like, there's this whole way of like how we've received all this messaging from when we're really young around being a girl and a woman and around failure and around taking risk and around making mistakes and being loud,
Yeah.
that I really think holds us back a lot as
Mm.
entrepreneurs, because even the little parts of that, even doing like a live, being on video, showing your face, there's so many little things that hold us back in that,
Mm.
because it's rubbing up against all of this triggering of that's
Mm.
not what I was told was like I was supposed to be doing. Because like how many, I mean, I know I'm a recovering good girl. I think like so many of us out there are like in this thing of like that's not what I was taught I was supposed to be, and like figuring out, like trusting myself,
Mm.
trusting my intuition to discover, well, like, okay, so people told me I shouldn't be loud, I shouldn't make mistakes. Well, I'm learning as an entrepreneur that finding success in that comes from figuring out, well, where is it actually right for me to make these mistakes?
Mm.
Where does it actually help and serve me to be loud, to be
Yes.
visible,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the answer to that for me is only something that I can feel in my body.
Mm.
I started out, I know you also pivoted. Like I started out originally, like over 7 years ago now, in parenting and teaching moms, like, how do you figure out what it means to be a mom in the way that you want to be a mom? Like,
Mm.
throw in the trash all these ideas about like positive parenting and conscious parenting and all these things, right? Just like in entrepreneurship, you're supposed to, there's all these things people tell you got to do to be successful, right? But like when you throw in the trash all the things that other people say, how you have to be, or you have the things you have to do and all that, and you actually go
Yeah.
inwards to listen, like you said, to that whisper,
Yeah.
right? Of like, where is it right for me? And
Mm.
like when you do things from that place, it is so powerful. And you're not doing it because you're like convinced that like, there's a lot of, I feel like, getting energy at the beginning stages of entrepreneurship, and that can also build as we go, of like, I got to get clients and I got to do this thing to get this thing to, I got to do this thing to get the likes, to get the comments, to get the DMs, to get the clients, to get the, you hear
It's
that,
exhausting, isn't it? It's exhausting.
right? And it's like we're out there doing these things and not getting energy, but we're putting all of our power outside of ourselves because we're not doing it from what feels good and right for us. We're doing
Mm.
it because someone else said
Yes.
that's what we have to do in order to get the thing,
Yeah. Oh,
right?
100%. And you know what? And it's such a big learning journey as well, entrepreneurship, because you are going to have to learn skills, right? I always invest in mentorship more often than not in mindset because it's what I specialize in. So I always believe, well, if I'm specialized in this, then I need to be squeaky clean with myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've had to learn. I've been in containers where I've had to learn messaging. I've had to learn about branding and brand awareness and all of this stuff, like emotional buy-in and everything. And I didn't have a clue when I first
Yeah.
started. I just had a passion to help people, and I had a passion for health and mindset and fitness. That was what I started with. That's what got me going. So you're right, and you go on this journey, and I think we look up to these people in the social media world that are or look appear to be like they are absolutely smashing it, and they've got incredibly successful businesses. So you jump into their containers and you learn their strategy, you learn their messaging. And I've sometimes come out of those containers, and again, I'm taking full responsibility for this, right? Because I didn't trust myself enough back in the day.
Mm.
My message got diluted, and I sounded like them. Right?
Yeah.
It was this thing, and I'm like, no, this is not. I had business ideas that I presented to them, and they said, no, you need to niche down and get specific.
Mm.
And it was like, okay, if that's what I have to do to be successful, then maybe that's not the path for me, because I don't want to go against what I believe to be true.
Yeah.
And I think when you like take the bull by the horns, as they say, I had an idea to build my membership, which is Limitless Academy,
Mm,
and it's a self-development membership. And I wanted it to be a space for like personal development, right? Mindset, health, wellness, money mindset, manifestation, healing beliefs. Because it wasn't one thing that got me here, right? In my professional and personal life, it was an accumulation of everything.
yeah.
And I didn't want to niche down
Mm,
personally. And I know it works for some people, and I'm here for it.
mm,
But for me, it didn't work because my business is an expansion of who I am. And
mhm,
I love all of the
mm,
things,
mm,
right? I love anything self development. And I love tapping. I love timeline therapy. I love meditation. I love human design.
mm,
And I thought, I want to bring this community together of women that the curious, like
mm,
the curious about all of it. And I think that, again, I followed my own intuition. I took advice from the mentor and said, thank you very much. I'm going to take what resonates and I'm going to leave what doesn't.
uh,
And I'm going to run with this thing. And I've got nearly 27 members in today. I only launched it in Jan, but that's because I followed my intuition, right?
yeah, right.
Have you had an experience like that
Oh,
before for yourself?
I mean,
Yeah,
all the times, the things that I've created, and then I've actually, what I haven't had is I have never had a mentor tell me not to follow my
that's
intuition.
good.
Um, but I think because I realized really early on that it was at the center of everything I was going to be doing.
Nice.
Yeah. But um, because before I became an entrepreneur, I was working, I worked over 12 years in human resources. And in my corporate job, I left that job having been harassed for 2 years and leaving in deep depression and burnout. And when I left that, and in the reconstruction of like deconstruction of myself and reconstruction of myself,
Yeah.
I realized that I had gotten to that point because I was not trusting myself.
Mm.
So when I became an entrepreneur, that's why from the start of it, it's starting in parenting and then a couple years later moving into business coaching. That's always been at the heart of everything that I do because it was probably the greatest lesson that I ever learned
Yeah.
in my life through that terrible, terrible experience of that harassment and deep depression that I wish on no one to experience.
Mm.
And yet the gift that came out of it was this deep, deep need to continue to trust myself and to figure out what that looks like and how do you actually do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
seeing all the times when I wasn't doing it. When I continue to not do it,
Mm.
right? Because it's like it's a continual process. It's a muscle that we continue to strengthen.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I don't know that it will I don't know that it will ever end this process, right? And like all the time realizing when I yet again was not trusting myself,
Mm.
which led me to, that made it so that I built my business so that I could have the mom life that I
Yeah.
wanted to have. So I could be my own boss, right?
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then realizing that, so okay, I got to 10K months. Awesome, because that was my goal. But I got there having completely betrayed myself because I wasn't trusting myself, because I was using someone else's strategy,
Mm.
because that was what they told me I had to do to succeed. Like we all do so easily,
Yeah.
right? And then being like, no, like I am now, okay, I'm making the money I wanted to be making, but at what cost?
At what
At
cost?
what
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
no longer with my kids. My husband was managing my kids. My kids didn't even care that I was there in the
Mm.
5 minutes that I had available to play with them. Like they didn't even care. And they were like 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like, no, this is not what I became an entrepreneur for.
Mm.
So I tore it down and I started over again. And I did that again a couple of years later. I got back to 10K months. And then again, I tore it down and I rebuilt it because even though I was making the money, yet again, I was using a different business strategy. But again, a business strategy that was actually not adapted to what I wanted, to
Mm.
my
Yeah.
mom life that I wanted, to the
Mm.
fulfilled life that I wanted, to the time freedom that I wanted to have. So
Mm.
I again tore it down and started over again. And I trusted myself to do that,
Mm.
right? And even as scary as it is, I don't think that like it is required for us to tear it down. But that's why I do what I do now, is to help women to re, to make the changes that they
Mm.
need in their business earlier on. Because if I had known that earlier on, I could have made smaller shifts
Mm.
rather than the radical like tear it down thing that I
Yeah.
had to do twice
Yeah.
in order
Mm.
to be able to make a business that actually allowed me to have a lot of time freedom,
Yeah.
because that's what I wanted.
Mm.
Like my son called earlier today. He finished school early. He's like, Mom, can you come and pick me up? Yeah, come pick you up. And I rearranged my things to allow,
Yeah.
right? But because I've set my business up
Mm.
that way, now 7 years down the road,
Yeah.
like I only wish I'd been able to do that earlier on, right? That I had find a mentor, that I wish I would have found a mentor then
Mm.
that could have taught me to do what I teach women to do now.
Yeah. But I guess, like, thinking of that, you probably wouldn't be doing what you're doing now if you hadn't have gone through. Because I'm guessing, even though you was in a position where you was earning 10K months and you had your strategy and everything else like that, like, you've learned some really powerful skills along the way. And I think sometimes we have to go down what feels like a harder path for us to then be able to live the life that we want to live today. Like I said, you're 7 years in now, right? And you've got the experience, and I take experience over textbook any
Yeah.
day. Like, it's just how I move, and how I, like I always say, I don't practice what I preach, I teach what I practice.
Right.
Right. But what kind of, because I know I'm just conscious of time here, but what kind of modalities then would you recommend, or if you do use any, to help you connect with your intuition more?
Yeah. You know, I think it's really, for me, it's really about
Mm.
self-awareness. That's what I
Yeah.
work on a lot with my clients. Like, what is one, starting with, so like earlier today I had a session with a woman, and she was feeling like all my clients completely overwhelmed with all the things that were happening in her life and in her business, right? So we start with, okay, just taking one thread at a time out of this big knot, right? Because we get caught up in all the
Yeah.
things, right? We touch one
Yeah.
little part, and then it creates this, we feel this, and it's like this big knot, and then we just don't know what to do with it,
Mm.
right? Like, do I just cut my hair off, or like, what do I do?
Love it.
And so it's like looking at like just one part at a time,
Yeah.
and starting with, what is the thing that, what is the thing that feels good, or where are the parts, like a lot of times when we feel overwhelmed, what we feel like we're lacking is clarity. We
Mm.
feel like there is zero clarity in anything, but the truth is that a part of that, whatever it is that we're wanting instead of what we have, is already there.
Mm.
So it's looking for that. So when we want more clarity because we're feeling overwhelmed, well, what is actually clear for me,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
and starting with that, because just tapping into just a little bit of what we want allows us to expand it.
Mm.
And the more it expands, the less we feel, so in this case, overwhelmed or stressed. And then we start to be able
Mm.
to actually think more clearly and to
Mm.
see the situation more clearly. And from
Mm.
there, we can start to tackle, well, what are the problems,
Mm.
right? And each step of the way, okay, like, how is this feeling in my body,
Yeah.
right? Because when we reach that place of clarity, all of a sudden, like, our body starts to,
Mm.
right? We start to
Mm.
settle. We feel that grounded place. And then we can build. And because we cannot tackle the problems from what I see for myself and my clients until we're actually at a place of like calmness and peace
Yeah.
and grounding.
Yeah.
When we're in that place where there's all these problems, our head is just
Mm.
spinning. So there's nothing that we can like grab onto
Mm.
to feel that safety,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's really about what's happening. Where do I already have what I want, right?
Mm.
So if what I want is more fun, where do I already have that?
Yeah.
What I want is peace, where do I already have that,
Yeah.
right? And then what does it feel like in my body when I have that? And
Mm.
expanding that, and then moving on to, okay, what is the real problem here, right?
Mm.
And a lot of times I feel like it's hard to do that work by yourself because it's hard to be brutally honest with yourself, right?
Oh, 100%. And I always say, you've said a really good point there, is like, we can't do, in my opinion, again, we can't do this work alone, because you cannot see yourself in the picture when you are in the frame.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe that I have a mentor, right? My mentor has a mentor. Like, you cannot see your own blind spots. And I think when you've explained overwhelm, like, overwhelm is literally disorder of the
Yeah.
mind. Right. And I think, like you said, it's pulling out, because sometimes there is so much noise and so much going on. And I guarantee the work that I do with timeline therapy, we go back to the root cause of when we were between the ages of 0 to 7. Because a lot of the time it's like having a rucksack on, and every event in life and everything that you do, it's all going into this rucksack, it's weighing you down. And then you get to your 30s, 40s and think, I can't even think straight, because you've got so much baggage that you've carried with you throughout your whole life, and you don't even understand like why and what step to take, like you said. And I think it takes working with somebody that can help you break it down, because all it takes is a different question.
Yeah.
Like, I say it to my clients all the time, like, them on a one-to-one with me, they say to me, I've never looked at it like that. And I said, that's because somebody's never asked you that question before. You
Mm-hmm.
got to think differently.
Right. And we can't, it's so hard to um, piece it apart.
Mm,
Right? When we're in that place of overwhelm, we see it as something that is so big, and we just don't even know where do we start to like tackle it. Where in this big knot do I just like, where's just one little hair in there that I can pull out, and like, like we don't know how to bring it down to something that we can actually work with. And I
mm,
think that's at the heart of that's a big part of it, of like bringing it down to something that we can do something with, right? And I think
yeah,
that
yeah.
helps when you're working with someone else,
Mm,
especially one-on-one, but even in a mastermind program, for example, um, where you have actual coaching with someone else that can help you to look at it and be like, okay, well, tell me about this part. Okay,
mm,
now tell me this. And within that, like, what are these all little pieces in here?
mm,
Okay, then what's the third thing? Okay, let's come back to this one now. When we come back to this one, like, and bringing them in through something that brings more order into it.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
because as my client's coach, like, I have no emotional attachment to the
mm,
things that they're working through,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, it makes it so that I can see very clearly
yeah,
what they're working through, and
yes,
them to see what they're not seeing, right?
yeah,
And words
yeah,
to what they're not putting words to.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay, tell me more about that thing,
mm,
right? Because there we when the all the parts that for us we have emotional attachment to, we're gonna just try to
mm,
like brush over it, right? We'll say something and then like try and move on.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah,
coach, like, my job is to see that and to be like, oh, that's an indicator that there's something really important there
yeah,
that you're not giving yourself permission to dive into.
mm,
So let's go look at that. What's happening right there?
mm,
And then bringing safety around it, right?
yeah, safety, yeah, huge,
I mean,
huge,
for me, that's like the strict minimum.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Anything if you're not feeling
yeah,
safe. You
yeah,
have to feel
yeah.
safe to transform.
It's the whole nervous system piece, isn't it, that comes into it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really magical. We're going to have to end this.
Yes.
It,
Thank you so much for having me today.
yeah, I have had so much fun. We'll have to do this again because I can see we have a lot of things to share together, and it's just so amazing. Is there anything you would like to, something you want to give to the audience, or any last other thing you wanted to share?
Well, for me personally, I mean, I'm obsessed with tapping. Like, EFT tapping for me is the thing, and I'll tell you very quickly why. Is because it acts as a part of the brain, which is the amygdala, which is where our emotional mind is, where our emotions are stored. And if you are in a position where you are feeling overwhelmed, you are feeling anxious, imposter syndrome, all of the things that come with life and business, because it happens, like you said, new level, new devil. I just believe in tapping so much because it's very fast and it shifts the energy
Mm,
completely. So if anybody is interested in tapping, I've actually got a Become the One tap-in, which is my freebie that you can grab from my link in my bio. And what I do with my tap-ins is I put some activational music behind them, so it really activates you.
Mm,
The girls in my world absolutely love them. Like my whole membership is filled with all of these different types of tap-ins. But if anyone wanted to try it, then I highly recommend that one.
yeah. I love tapping. You're so right. Like everything that I do with my clients is very, very personalized. So like tapping is something that I can give them
Yeah.
depending on what they're going through. Um, so 100%, like go and get that because it is so helpful to learn. And it can be like you can use tapping in so many different circumstances.
Anything.
People even
Anything.
know it. Like I did it. I'll just share one thing. Like I had for a while in my business, I had a time when I was really, really stressed out.
Yeah.
And I did tapping in bed when I couldn't go to sleep. And I didn't actually tap. I just imagined myself tapping in the different
Yeah.
spots and said
Yeah.
the protocol that you say in tapping, and that helped me to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So like,
It's so
actually
powerful.
like physically be doing the places where like people like you can imagine yourself doing it,
Mhm.
and the power of the mind and the body is so amazing that it
Yeah.
also can work for you,
Yeah.
right?
It's
So it's
incredible.
figuring out what works for you and in what circumstances that helps you and works
Yes.
for you. So
Yes.
if you have
100%.
discovered tapping and you want to discover how it works, go and get that. 100%. And I want to say that I'm offering right now free balance block sessions. So in these one-on-one sessions, they're 1 hour together where we dive in together and we discover what is keeping you from doing the things that you know you want to be doing in your life and in your business. And we discover together what are those blocks. And then I will help you in that session also to see where is your path forward. Any
Mm.
change that we're looking for starts with clarity. And that's what this session brings you. It brings you actual tangible things that you know are blocking you from moving forward in your life and in your business, and to see that path forward so you're not just stuck in that feeling of being stuck. You're actually knowing, oh, okay, this is what's actually keeping me there, and this is what's going to allow me to move forward. So
Oh, they sound really
it's
powerful. I like the idea
super
of those.
powerful. I'm going to do one.
Yeah.
I'll do one with you.
They sound amazing.
Yeah, they are. I tell you what, they're really amazing. Like it's really at the heart of how I start working with clients when we start working one-on-one. So I wanted to offer that to people right now for free. So
Amazing.
come on
Oh,
in there if you want to do that and
thank you.
reach out. It's in my bio. Also, you can just put something under here or DM me, whatever it is that works for you, and we'll schedule that.
Oh,
All
exciting.
right.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's been a pleasure.
It has been. Thank you so much for being here. Bye, everybody. Talk
See
to
you
you soon.
soon. Bye.